Today we're going to go to Exodus chapter 2. Let's pray. And Father, we thank you for the Word. We thank you for our Redeemer, Jesus Christ. But we also know, Lord, that Moses was also one who came to redeem his people from Egypt, from their place of imprisonment. So, Lord, we give you praise and give you all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen. So Moses was a man who was born for a very big purpose. And it's not unlike all of us. We're all born with a purpose. We all have a very big purpose in God's life. And some of you may have sensed it when you're younger, and you may have felt like, I was going to be a mother, or I was going to be a father, I was going to be a soldier, I was going to be a plumber, You may have sensed early what God wanted you to be. I know when I was young, I used to always, I guess pray about it, but I used to always think about what I wanted to be. The first thing I'd want to be is like my father. He was a sheet metal mechanic. I'm going to be a sheet metal mechanic. Then I wanted a car, so I'm going to be a truck driver, But always I thought I was also wanting to be a priest, Then I discovered girls, so I decided that I needed to be a brother. We just be for a little while, maybe for a few years, be a brother. But so God was always putting that calling into your heart, and He's leading you where He wants you, because He knows before you were ever born who you're going to be, because you're His, And everybody who's ever been born, I believe, has a purpose. Not everybody fulfills that purpose. If they don't come to Christ, they don't fulfill the purpose that God has for them. So they're out there wandering around for 30, 40, 50, 60, 80 years, But they never fulfill God's purpose in their life. They don't come to Christ. So Christ has a purpose for you. And Moses had a purpose before he was ever even born. The people were crying out, and things had really changed. They had been there under Joseph, Joseph having been what you'd sort of call the prime minister of Egypt, and they looked really good. They had the best land in Egypt, the land of Goshen. You heard that, that's an old, I think it's a southern saying, but actually comes right out of the Bible. It was the best land in Egypt, the Nile River. That was the head of the Nile River, where all that, every year the dirt would come and overflow, and then you could grow crops. You didn't have to go down and get Scotch, growing stuff, fertilize the field. God did it for you. It was all done. And they grew, and as a result of people, and God told them that they would multiply. God told them in the Word that they would multiply and be a great people. They came in 70 people. Now they're up to 600,000 males, probably over 1 million people, 1.5 million, maybe. You count the children and everything. They're very plenteous people. I've heard estimates even higher than that. God had blessed them, and so they went a long time eating off the fat of Egypt. And then the leadership changed, and it was thought by many that the Pharaoh had been Semitic, and now, in other words, racially the same as the Jew. But then that changed, and now they have a native ruler, and he sees this other race of people, the Hebrew people. Now they know about the Hebrew God, and I think many even believe in the Hebrew God, but they don't follow. And so they know the predictions that they're going to be a very powerful people. They are a very powerful people. They're like I guess we call it that fifth army that's in your midst, a group of people that in your midst that's going to overthrow and rule. And they're afraid that the Hebrew people, they're very vibrant people, they're very intelligent people, they're very hardworking people. They're afraid that they're going to take over and rule. And so the native people don't want that. And so they have to. How are we going to stop them? And they know that our own scriptures. The Old Testament scriptures predicted that. Even predicted that they would be under harsh rule, and so here they are enslaved. The land of Goshen, the land of plenty, the land of promise for them was, of course, Canaan, not Goshen. And they're finding out that the land of Goshen has become a prison to them because the Egyptians now are ruling over them with rigor, which means that it's really genocide. It's a slow genocide of the Hebrew people. The new Pharaoh, Thutmose III, we're going to really persecute these people. And so they begin to rule over them with rigor. They want to. It's kind of interesting. They decide that they're going to kill the males, a lot of the males at birth, you know. And we saw in chapter 1 that the midwives refused to obey Pharaoh. They said he called a couple of midwives who were leaders, you know, and he spoke to them and told them, and of course they were to tell the other midwives, because when you're talking about over 1 million people, it's not just 2 midwives, that they were to tell the other midwives what to do, and that was, of course, to when they have the babies, to kind of very sneakily drown them, you know, or strangle them in the birth process, and they call it, I guess, at the pillow there as the babies are being born, but they don't do it. They disobey Pharaoh. When Pharaoh calls them on, they're more afraid of God than they are of Pharaoh, you know. And they just say, well, the babies, the Hebrews are so, because they're Hebrews too, the Hebrews are so rigorous that when they give birth to the babies, we don't get there on time. They're already born. They're already healthy. You know, we don't have the opportunity. We get there, the babies are already born. And so that is going on all through Egypt. And so they're trying to save their babies from. We saw last week that Pharaoh is angry at them, but God is happy with them. And he's not happy with them because that they lied to Pharaoh. It's not the lie. Some people say, "Oh, they lied. Why would God, you know, be happy with the midwives that lied?" He's pleased with them because they refused to murder the babies and because they feared God. And so God blesses these midwives so that they have many progeny too. So the nation of Israel continues to grow. And so the Egyptians are being outwitted and outpowered by holy God because these are his people. Now there has been sin. Israel, many of the Israelites have turned to the Egyptian gods, and there's been sin over the years. And so this is why Israel is going through this purification process, which is to be under a lot of pressure and a lot of suffering. God is allowing them to suffer so that they might turn back to God. And they're turning back to God. They're crying out. They're realizing that God really is there is only one God, and they need him, and they're crying out to him in pain and suffering. God, where are they? And of course the Egyptians, they can add too. They know that the 400 years is up. That it says right in Scripture, 400 years. That's how long they're going to be there before this happened. So they know, and perhaps the Israelites know too. It's time. It's time. God send us the one who's going to lead and to rescue us. So we call our sermon today, "Rescue Me." You know, do we all feel that sometimes? Oh boy, God, come and rescue me. God, I've suffered so, please, and it's not, by the way, rescue is not always because you were evil. You know, but in this case, Israel, they have a long history that would continue, that when they obeyed God, God would bless them. And when they didn't obey God, God would purify them through suffering. I guess is one way to say it. He would allow things to happen that would cause them to turn back to God. So Pharaoh is afraid, basically. The reason Pharaoh is persecuting, a lot of times when you think people hate, and it is hate, but it's out of fear. And Pharaoh hates the Egyptians, Pharaoh hates the Israelites because he is afraid of them. He's afraid of them. And so the objective, of course, is to encourage folks to hear God's call on their lives. God is calling Israel out to be the people he wanted them to be, and he wants to bring them into the promised land, bring them back where they need to be. They have grown into the nation. Remember when Abraham was called in Genesis chapter 12, and told that he was going to be the father of a huge nation, and that he was like the stars of the sky and the sands of the sea. And it was just a wonderful thing. And that he was going to rule in this land. Abraham looked out and said, it's just, me and Sarah, what are we going to do? How are we going to be the, possess this land? And so he was just another wanderer in the land. But now he's coming back. Now the people have prospered, and they have the numbers now where they can go into the land of Canaan and actually occupy the land of Canaan and have enough room still for their future. So Pharaoh was like Satan, trying to enslave all to his will. So he's overbearing. He's selfish. He's self-absorbed. He's not trying to find some kind of way to get along with the Hebrews and make this work, And so he wants the babies to be killed. Now, Moses' mom we see her as kind of a hero. She is ready to entrust her child to God, and she would no longer hide him when she has this baby. She's not going to hide this beautiful child. She's going to put him into the water and trust on the Lord. I guess that's still hiding him in a way, but in plain sight. She's going to trust God for the results. So we have this wonderful situation. She was. It's the picture of a believing and courageous mother. She's demonstrating courage. She's just a very special lady. She was a Hebrew of the Levite tribe, a slave of the lowest rank and position imaginable. Her husband, of course, is Amram, and they just have no political power whatsoever. And so she bears a son. So let's take a look at Exodus chapter 2. And it says, and there was a man of the home of Levi, that's Amram, and took to himself a daughter of Levi, and the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with the pitch, and put the child therein. And she laid it in the flags by the river's bank. So this is just a very simple little basket, just like like a poor woman could make, and of the things that she could find, the slime and the bulrushes. And she did a righteous thing. She hid him for 3 months because she didn't want to give up her son. He would be killed. He would be easy to abort. It would have been easier to kill the baby. But that was not God's way. She had other children, but she still didn't feel like that was what she wanted to do. So she made that watertight ark, like a basket, and she put Moses, little Moses. Now Moses, the name Moses means to draw out. Okay? And so she put little Moses into the ark, and she hid him among the reeds of the Nile River. And she trusted God to save him. Just a very amazing thing. She had Moses watched over by his older sister, Miriam. And she witnessed the sovereign guiding hand of God. It's just a very amazing thing here that God was absolutely in control of this whole situation from beginning to end. God had a purpose. God knew exactly what he was doing. He's the one that put that idea in Moses' mom's head, he's the one that gave Miriam the courage. Can you imagine Miriam? We see in these verse 4, Miriam is sent out to follow along, right? And she laid it by the flags of the river bank, and his sister, it says in verse 4, stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of the Pharaoh, came down to wash herself at the river, and led her maid, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. Now, this is God just enters into her heart and gives her a love for this child. And Miriam has the courage at this point to run up. Now, can you imagine? Now, she's up there. This is the very daughter of Pharaoh. Pharaoh has two daughters. One of the daughters is going to become really like an acting queen of Egypt for a while. It could have even been the one that Moses, that adopts Moses. And then there's another daughter as well. These are very, very powerful people. And Miriam has the courage to run up and to this woman and say, as we continue reading, the Hebrews children. And then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women? And there she may nurse the child for thee. This is it's just absolutely God doing that. And she had her faith rewarded. She was employed. She went to, in verses 9 and 10. She went to the child's mother, natural mother, and asked her, of course, and she was probably praying like crazy, weeping and crying through all of this. And Miriam comes up to her and says, "Okay, could you would you like to nurse your own baby?" And so she says yes. And so now God has moved in such a way that the daughter of Pharaoh, Thutmose III, who Thutmose III wants to murder the baby, instead he's going to pay the mother of the baby to nurse the child, and not only that, but to pay for the raising of the child. He's going to pay through the treasury to educate this child to be one of the most educated men in the whole world. He's going to go to the best universities in the whole world. He's going to be raised to be a prince, a leader. He's going to be raised to be a warrior. He's going to be raised to be an administrator. All the things that he needs to lead a large people like Israel had become, he's going to be trained by Pharaoh himself through the dawn. Think about that. How God moves, how God can just twist things around. Pharaoh himself is going to pay the very thing that he's afraid of, the very thing he's trying to kill these children about. Now, God uses him in such a way that he's going to make it come about. He educates and prepares Moses. Of course, God has put the heart in Moses. It's going to make him the very man that Pharaoh was hoping to kill. He's right in, Moses' mom probably keeps her for several months. He keeps him for several months. And then, we don't know because it's not, very little is written about Moses' life. When Moses' life really gets important is when he becomes 40 and begins to step out. We don't really know a lot about what happens. But we have to assume. Mom may have even been allowed, and probably was allowed, to go back and forth to the palace. She may have even been brought into the palace to live there. Because Moses now, she's the nurse. And all the princess knows is that this is the nurse. This is the nurse of Moses. And so she can live there. Maybe even her father, his father may even be there. And so all through his younger life, he's probably getting educated about who he is as a Hebrew. So he knows he's a Hebrew. He's probably told not to say anything, but he probably knows just exactly who he is. He's learned about the history of his people. He's learned about his God. He's getting this wonderful education from the Egyptians, he's also getting this good education from his mother, and perhaps from his father too. So we can only surmise. We don't know, but certainly there was a great effect. There was a great relationship that went on there. Moses knew exactly what he was and who he was. He didn't know that he was the one that was called out, but it was in his heart. Just like I said, when you're growing up and you're young and you start thinking, I want to do this and I want to do that. God's putting that in your heart. He's testing, he's bringing the thoughts into your mind and making you who you are. And so Moses now, it's thought that he became a great general. He could very well have become the very next Pharaoh. He could have ended up being the Pharaoh. There are some historians that think that he conquered Nubia and had a great deal of praise and love of the people, the Egyptian people. We can only assume. We know that he was a great leader, that he was a charismatic person. People were drawn to him. And so as we see the story continue, it says in verse 9, and Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it, and the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and she became her son. And she called his name Moses, to be drawn out of the river course. And she said, because I drew him out of the water. And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out and he and his brethren and looked on the burdens. So he went out and his brethren, and he looked on the bridge. So he went out to see. He knew who he was. He went out to look. He saw the tremendous pain that the Israelites were at. He probably went. We know that they built some of the greatest cities that the world has ever seen. And after that time, the city of Ramses. The Egyptians were building these buildings, but really it was the Israelites who were building these buildings. And so he went out to one of these sites, probably what it was, and if on the bricks of these buildings they have pictures. They have pictures of the overseers, the Egyptian overseers, with whips in their hands, and ruling the Jews with rigor, whipping them, and so this is what Moses saw, and now he's this wonderful Egyptian leader who knows that truly he is a Jew, a Hebrew, and he sees the way that his people are being treated, and it must have been very discouraging to him. And so he looks and he sees an Egyptian beating an Israelite. It says, and he looked this way and that and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. So when he saw this overseer beating up on it, this was going on all the time. This was under the orders of his, what would you call his father? Moses' stepfather, has been ordering this, and this enrages Moses, and so he kills the Egyptian. He thinks nobody's looking. He thinks it's all just nobody's around. I can kill this Egyptian, and I'll relieve this Hebrew from this burden. And so he does that. He kills the Hebrew. He kills the Egyptian. Excuse me. And as it turns out, that people did see, even your sins shall find you. This was not a correct thing to do. This was murder. He murdered the Egyptian, and it was wrong. Moses is going to have 40 years in the wilderness to think about what he did, okay? But perhaps Moses had come to the point where he was realizing that he was the man that his grandfather, I guess I should say, was so afraid of. That he was the man that was going to come back and lead the Hebrews, who were so vigorous and strong and so independent and wanting to be free. He was the very man. And so he steps out but not in God's power. God has a timing. And this was not God's timing. This was Moses' timing, okay? And so Moses now has killed an Egyptian and he hides it. He must be very confused. He felt that he needs to protect his people, and this was how he could do it in a small way. And you would think that he, as a prince in the land, he would have thought of a better way than that. Perhaps even striving to become Pharaoh, and he could have freed his people. But that wasn't God's way either. God required, God wanted to make a show of the power, of his power over the power of the gods of Egypt. God had a different power, a different idea completely. And so, so when Moses returns, it goes on. And he said in verse 12, he looked this way and that, and when he saw that there was no man, he saw the Egyptian and hid him. He slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. That must have been an easy thing for him because he was a warrior. He was the best trained in the land. So he could go over there and take that overseer and easily kill him, and he did. And when he went out the second day, behold, two men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, wherefore smiteth thee thy fellow? And so now he's already acting like Moses, the Moses we know. He's becoming, why are you fighting another Hebrew? You shouldn't be smiting another Hebrew. He's acting like a prince of the Hebrews, and really he's a prince of the Egyptian. The Hebrews, of course, turn on him. He realizes, they say, what right do you have, the guilty party, Hebrews, what right do you have to criticize me? Haven't you killed an Egyptian? You're a murderer. And I just don't know where that guy had the audacity to say that to Moses, the prince. But he did it. He must have been a very evil Hebrew. And he said in verse 14, and he said, who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Now the Hebrews must be realizing that Moses is one of them. He's one of theirs. Okay? Maybe it was something, it must have been a well-kept secret, because if it ever got to the grandfather, he would have been killed right away. And so now Moses knows that the secret is out, that this evil Hebrew, he knows his secret. He is a Hebrew, and he's a full-blooded Hebrew. He's not at all the daughter of the son of the princess, but he's the daughter of Jochebed, a daughter of Amram. Those are his father. That's his mother. And so he decides that he must run. The Pharaoh gets word too. He finds out about it, and the Pharaoh decides he must kill this man. He gets tremendously angry. And I know in the movie that you saw, that he captures him and he brings him out to the desert and sends him along, but that's not exactly how it happened. And it says now in Pharaoh, verse 15, heard this thing. He sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. So he ran for his life. He had to leave the place where he had so much power. The place where he was already feeling that he had that God had called him to lead his people. He had to abandon his people for the sake of his own life. And he's a 40-year-old man. And we find that in other places in Scripture. It doesn't say that in Exodus. But other places in Scripture, one other place says that he's 40 years old. So for 40 years now, we haven't heard anything about who Moses is. Why do you think that we haven't heard anything much at all about Moses' life up to that point? Well, it's because this was the point, the part that God wanted us to know. This was the part where God was now going to start fulfilling the life of Moses. He runs them out to Midian. The Midianites are a people that are descended from Abraham, and they've also intermarried with the son of Ishmael, with the children of Ishmael. So they're a mixed parentage, but they're definitely people that are in the Abrahamic descendancy. Keturah, one of Keturah's sons, was Midian. That's where the Midianites came from. Keturah was the second wife of Abraham, and in his old age, he lived to be 175, he had 6 more children, and one of them is the Midianites. But they've been also mixed with Hagar's son, the very child of Hagar, Ishmael. So it's an interesting thing. He's out with the Midianites, and he is going to spend 40 years there. 40 years. 40 years. He's 40 years old. He spends another 40 years out there in Midian, and he's going to spend another 40 years leading the people of Israel. He's going to live 120 years. That's a man that had a lot of vigor, you know. He has a lot. He has a lot to fulfill. God is going to do many great things in his life. We're going to talk about that in the coming weeks. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank and praise you for this man, Moses, a man who was, before he ever was born, his destiny was already sealed. Lord, we just give you praise, and we give you all the glory for that. And Lord, we thank you that you never forget your promises that you give to us. That you answer all of our prayers, and you fulfill all of your promises in your own time and in your own way. Lord, we're now going to watch, Lord, as you bring Moses into your will, under your power, in your timing, and watch him lead your people, a repentant people, a people that were ready to follow you. And we just thank you and praise you for this. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. I might say that a little bit of doubt of people that are ready to follow you, because they were a stiff-necked people. Moses had a great task. It was going to take all of his training, all of his 80 years of experience, all of his patience, and a little bit more. God is going to have to correct him and still build him up. And the 40 years in the wilderness is a time for him to grow as a person and grow in his relationship with his God, to come back to fulfill God's purpose. Father, again, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for the time that we've had. And we ask, Lord, that you would touch us and encourage us, Lord, to hear you as you speak tonight. And give us confidence and encouragement as you answer our prayers.